Say it loud together as we welcome him on the stage. We'd also like to welcome Mr. Harangad Singh, co-founder Parat, to please join us on stage. Let's say it loud together for him, everyone. We'd love to welcome Mr. MuditTandon, key accounts head CHUK, to please join us on stage. Let's hear it loud together for him. Mr. VaibhavSinghal, CEO and co-founder, DroptheQ, to please join us on stage. All right, and before we start with the session, I'd like to tell you that we are starting with a roundtable discussion on level 1. So if anybody, any of you, they are interested to join the roundtable discussion session, can certainly go downstairs. And with this, Mr. Vipin Gupta, CTO Starbucks, was supposed to join us virtually, but because we are running late, he couldn't. He might join us in between, but I think we'd love to start the session now. Let me hand over it to Mr. RajatTuli, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hear it loud as we start the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'll be facilitating today's session. My name is Rajat. As a short introduction, I'm a partner with Kearney. Over the last decade, I've had the opportunity to serve a number of leading organizations in F&B space, QSRs, cloud kitchens, and food service retailers on a multitude of topics from growth, organization, consumer experience, and so on. And it's always a privilege to speak with senior F&B stalwarts that I have on my panel today. Would request each of you if you can share a short bit of introduction about yourself, and then we can move towards the session.
Hi, my name is Chef Harangad. I am chef and founder of Parat and Meow. That's about me. So I'm in industry for good 14 years, and currently I am myself not working as only a chef, but a restaurateur. So looking forward for this debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Chef. Hi, everyone. I'm Rakesh, Ranjan. I work at Zomato. And lovely to be here. Lovely. Will be great to interact with you guys. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mudit. I am representing CHUK. CHUK is a brand which truly believes in sustainability in packaging. So we are manufacturers of sustainable packaging in India, and we've been here for about 5 years now, and hoping for the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Mudit. Hi, everyone. This is Vaibhav. I'm co-founder of DroptheQ. So I have the privilege of being in this session since morning. So since morning, we have been listening from industry stalwarts about phygital, about omni-channel, about digital innovations, curbside pickups, food courts. So I'm glad to introduce DroptheQ as a one-point solution, single window solution for all the digital technology needs of anyone and everyone over here. Thank you.
Super. Thank you all. So speaking of today's session, the evolving digital landscape in F&B space. So digital has been on the rise for the last many years. Now with COVID, or in the post-COVID world, has gotten a big boost. And when we speak of digital, there are multiple aspects through which we can look at it. One is the more front-end or a customer-facing, where either whether I order food from an aggregator, and hence, as a customer, I'm looking for constant updates of where is my food, has the rider left the location, has my order been allotted, or if I go to a dine-in place, we hear of digital as those QR-based menus. Some QSRs, at least specifically in countries like China, where I just entered the store and there's a camera looking at me, and that pretty much recognizes the customer. So we see kind of digital everywhere, falling from digital payments and so on. But that's the digital that we as consumers experience always. But I would say there is a fair amount of digital or technology that goes in the back-end operations as well. So be it robots either serving food or preparing food, or there is a a chip, an RFID sensor, which helps me count inventory and multiple things. So digital is pretty much pervasive everywhere, and there is always a question whether in a relatively lower cost country like India, whether digital is really an ROI accretive thing or not, given the relatively lower cost of manpower. And these are some of the topics that we'd like to discuss in today's session. So beginning with the first question, and I'll start with the front-end section first. These days we hear a lot of companies using data and analytics to enhance customer experience. So I just kind of wanted to start with that question, that what is the panelist's take in terms of, what are the technologies being used and how can it actually benefit or enhance a customer experience? Any one of you would like to take a shot?
I can take a shot. Of course, my views will be more from an aggregator's point of view, more from a consumer demand aggregator point of view. But I'll try and cover both sides of the equation, which is how restaurants look at customer experience and how platforms like us look at customer experience. And there is a simple divide. And that divide is about how much you focus on empirical evidence and how much you look at data systematically to call out trends, right? In my experience, what I have seen is for an individual restaurant owner, every experience counts a lot, right? And data is something that they would not necessarily embrace because it actually takes away the flavor from the feedback, right? That's how traditionally most of the restaurant owners have looked at data. It has its pros and cons. Pros are, of course, in terms of being very personal with experience and so on and so forth. The cons are when you start looking at actually scaling your business, when you start looking at avenues to sort of either have more brands or more locations, then empirical customer experience parameters don't matter as much. The other side where I have seen there being a lot of scope for improvement is that there are a lot of input metrics that go into deciding what kind of customer experience will eventually get delivered. So what I mean by that, for example, there's a metric that we very closely track on our platform is what we call as kitchen preparation time. And that's very relevant for delivery, but probably also relevant for dine out as well, right? Many a times we optimize our kitchen operations to have a certain amount of kitchen preparation time, but we don't optimize it for variation in kitchen preparation time. And it's the inconsistency of customer experience that riles a customer, not necessarily a high waiting time or a low waiting time as much, right? So that's the key difference I have seen in terms of if you just look at the metric, you might not call out the right trends. You need to go a little deeper and figure out what those trends are, right?
Super.
Go on, but
no, that's very, very, very insightful, Rakesh. Anybody else? Maybe you.
Yeah, thanks, Rakesh. So just want to ask a simple question, why is data important and how economical it is to collect data? So when we talk about, so I would like to create a divide among the industry. Not a divide, but draw a fine line among the industry. So there are two, the organized industry and unorganized industry. For the players of the organized industries, it's very easy, and they do think of data, and it's very important to have the data. Data analytics has helped these organizations over the period of time to deliver that experience to the counter. So if you talk about a CRM is a customer resource management. It's a simple tool which heavily depends upon the data analytics and the data which is recorded into that. So if you talk about the good old days, so what was CRM? CRM was when a customer walks into a customer and the person at the reception greets, hi, Mr. Rajat, how are you? Now the CRM has converted into a data analytics tool. So as Rakesh said, when we go to scale and when the restaurants want to scale up, then they need to have these type of data analytics tool which can help to track the customer experience, customer journey, and the user taste, if we talk about the restaurant industry per se, so that they can deliver the same experience to that customer globally if he visits to any counter or any outlet of that particular brand. So that's what data analytics has done and helped and the bigger organization to do that. Whereas there's another set of smaller organization or the unorganized sector which still doesn't have that access to data, or I would say they don't understand data that well. So there's a requirement and need of the hour to help them as well and have some inclusivity in the industry so that everybody grows at the scale. If I'm not wrong, report says by 2025 this would be $100 billion industry. And 50% would be the share of organized players, a bit more than 50%, which is somewhere around 30-35% right now. And both organized and unorganized will contribute equally to the growth of the segment. So data analytics is very important for everyone, for every partner, every restaurant, every industry, and is the best tool for governance, transparency, cost analysis, and not only increasing the EBITDA and PAT, but also the ROAS. So there are businesses which are driven by that, and it helps businesses to increase the profitability and the return of capital employed as well. Thanks.
That's a good comment. Anybody else? Or
So when we talk about digital marketing, digital platforms, I would like to, talk from the layman point of view, stating that when we open a brand, when we start a new brand, what we want is, the first question is how to make the reach of that brand available for the customers. Now, there are many factors through which we can reach to our customers. One is through SMS, but from a chef's point of view, the first punch of hunger starts with your eyes. When you look at a brand or food, then you get hungry to order from it. And I think digital platform gives you that kickstart through many platforms like Zomato, Swiggy, and there are many, .pay. Of course, nowadays Facebook is also helping us. So first thing, what we want when we start a brand is our reachability. That how should we reach, how should we take a product to the customer? And I think digital platforms are very important for it. Like recently, as you said, for scaling the brands, you definitely need digital partners to help you reach out to the people. And recently, I've started a new brand of my own, and until unless I took a digital support, I was not able to crack out those sales what I required. So I think it is a very important tool to use when you start a new project. Yes.
So coming purely from the other side of, not the front end, but more of the back end, I feel that data for all of us, I think we being a product company, it's all equally important when we look at consumer behavior, when we look at what kind of pricing or costing does the restaurant need, or they want when they talk about disposables or when they talk about their packaging. How does the consumer consume food? What do they like? What do they not like? How much volume would they like to be served? I think when we are designing products, especially as CHUK, I could talk for ourselves at least. We take all these points into consideration, and I think all the data points or all the data, all the statistics help us with all this into deciding what we should launch, what shape should it be, how much should it cost, and so on and so forth. So I think, there are a lot of platforms which provide us with all that data apart from the on-ground research that we end up doing. So it's definitely, I think, growingly important for the industry on the whole.
Super. I think we spoke of the industry getting more organized, and hence the need for analyzing data at a macro level, which essentially helps shape my analytics, my strategies, my focus areas for the future. So my question is more from a, let's say I'm a small to mid-scale startup or a small chain, and the question often posed to me is, I got an CRM tool that got installed. I have tons of data, and then I just do not know what to do with that data. I think the first cut obviously is what is the macro picture, which menu items are selling more, which menu items are selling less. So those are still aggregate trends that I can make use of. But what can I do more, which is probably customer specific, because a Rajat is different from a Rakesh, is different from others, and hence what can I do and what level can I customize, because every customization also has a back-end implication. And there is always a cost and a consumer experience trade-off that happens. So what's your take in terms of, what is the level of simple customizations that a smaller chain or a smaller startup can take versus, obviously, the large established players have those kind of coffers to fund anything and everything. What would be your take on that?
Yeah, so I would like to answer this question. So the question which Rajat has asked, there's one simple answer which comes to my mind, and I'm a big fan of that. That's called Dell model. 80% is generic and last 20% is customized, which has helped Dell scale like anything. And if I'm not wrong, all the big chains globally, they have followed the same strategy to scale and to deliver that customer experience to the customer at the end of the day. So if you talk about a QSR, so QSR, I'm talking about QSRs because these are the highest, the growth rate, they are growing at a CAGR of somewhere around 17 to 20% if I'm not wrong. And their approach is also, penetration is also very high. So if you talk about a biryani or a burger or a pizza, so these are the formats wherein you can have 80% of the things ready, and the last mile, जो 20% last hai, that could be converted as per the customer experience, and your CRM will help you identify the exact need and the history of the person who has come to order you or whose order has landed in your platform. So that's my take is Dell model, I would say, would help everybody and anybody around to achieve that last level of customization and customer experience, delivering that customer experience.
So to create that extra effort for our customer experiences, we follow a simple theory of never say no policy. So every request is attended with our brands, and whether it be it through Zomato, Swiggy, or we get calls directly. So we follow one basic rule that we never say no to our customers. Even if we have to go a little extra mile, like we have a limited menu because we are a cloud kitchen. And there, I'll give you an example that there was one of our guests who wanted certain dishes out of the menu, but we were not having those ingredients. We listened to the whole needs of the customer, and we came to a point where we were not able to arrange that particular dish. But we took a day or so, we apologized to the customer the same day. 2 days back, we again called back the customer, we made the dish, we gave a book which we had bought to cook that dish, to learn that dish and cook. So, little things add on to the experiences. Like recently I had seen Zomato also gifting customers. So, like mugs or something. So little extra effort definitely create a big difference in a big picture.
I have a slightly different take on this, okay? And I think the original question posed was what degree of customization, how important is customization, specifically to cater to different consumer segments, right? And when I say segments, these are personas. These are not people from different segments of the society, but they're essentially personas. In my experience, what I have seen, on a scale of 1 to 10, anything which is beyond, let's say, a scale of 2 of customization doesn't work, right? And so, of course, doing extra is great, but that's not necessarily, it's an individual customization. It's going the extra mile, but it's not necessarily customization technically to speak. I think the way the brand gets created, it has its identity in itself, right? And when the brand has an identity, it has limited ways in which it can customize itself, right? Because it's an identity. It's like, I'm a person. I can only change to a certain extent. If I change too much, it breaks me, right? Wherever I have seen brands trying to become highly customizable to the extent that it can fit for everyone, I haven't usually seen it working very well. Whereas on the other hand, I have seen a multi-brand approach towards customization work better, right? For example, I am a biryani brand, and I think a lot of, in a particular area, there I am. So actually, let me come back. So there are two types of customization, right? One is making changes to regional preferences. That is something that actually not a lot of people do. I wish more people could do that, but not a lot of people do. Which means my biryani's taste in Delhi ideally should be a little different from my biryani's taste in Hyderabad. A lot of large brands have now started warming up to it. Some brands have been upfront in doing it, but not most have done it. So that's one. I'm keeping that on the side. But when it comes to single brand identity customization, I have seen a lot of brands come out with multiple brands which actually cater to different segments. And I believe that is the right way to approach customization beyond a scale of 2. The moment you're going beyond that, the moment you're going beyond a 20% customization, one should actually start thinking about a different brand altogether.
Understood. That's a fair articulation. Sometimes the question often posed is, I as a brand am ready to do a specific customization to a customer because XYZ is my repeat customer, and over the last few months, I've seen the frequency of purchase going down. Now, I want to somewhere incentivize that customer to kind of, reorder in again, and hence probably a discount or some specific promotion. But many times, the platform that I'm choosing, the flexibilities are limited. So what would be your take if, to the extent of, having my own platform and system, and I can't kind of obviously set up my own system simply because I have a few set of customers with specific needs. So how important do you think is a balance between the last mile customer, my degree of control, and the level of investment that I put into my digital technologies?
I'm obligated to take this question, right? To sort of put it very simply, I think what Rajat is saying is that how relevant it is for a brand to establish its own delivery infrastructure versus going with an established aggregator like a Swiggy or a Zomato and so on and so forth, right? I think the question is slightly different. The brand first needs to ask itself, where is it that I create value, right? And a brand should be in a place where it is creating value, right? It should not be doing non-value added tasks, right? And that's relevant for all of us, right? Most of us don't clean our house ourselves, right? Because we believe that's not where we add value. There is someone else who adds value there. Let that person do it. Coming back to this, now there could be a brand identity where the last mile experience is highly value adding, right? Let's take a brand X, which believes that the ability to get a particular product delivered in a particular way is extremely important. It probably determines 70% of the amount of value that gets added to my overall food. Let's say that's the hypothesis. It makes sense to try and own it then. However, one needs to still take a step back and think, will I be able to do it one time, or will I be able to continuously improve on it? Because the world is going to improve. So my answer today is not going to be relevant tomorrow. And hence the first thing that I see some great brands doing very well is to go down the packaging route, right? Because that's a great way to ensure that the last mile, to a certain extent, is under my control, right? So I'll give you a small example. If you order a cake in Ahmedabad from any store, the cake is beautifully packed, right? You can actually turtle the cake and it still won't fall over, right? Because cake delivery is large in Ahmedabad compared to any other city. So they have done a lot of packaging innovations, right? So they use a lot of double-sided tape to sort of make sure they'll make the cake less fluffy. They use less cream, all of that stuff, right? So that's the first question. where do I add value? Do I add that value only by owning the last mile, or are there other ways in which I can add value? If the answer to both questions is, to the first question is yes, and the second question is no, which is no, I don't think there are other measures, one should go ahead and try and do it, right? Because it's important to them. So that's where I am largely, right? But that is relevant maybe to 10% or maybe 5% or even 2%, right? There are brands like Domino's who would want to own that because they do believe that this is where I add value. Is that relevant for every brand? Is that what the brand should ask themselves first before they actually ask anyone else? I think that's very important. The other reason this question gets asked often is that there is an assumption on the basis of very broad math that owning the supply chain or owning the last mile is cheaper, right? And there is this assumption. I can tell you very comfortably, I have done this calculation with brands who have run 300 riders fleet, 200 riders fleet. The cost at the minimum is 1:2, right? So if the cost of delivery through an aggregator is X, on an average, the cost of delivery by keeping your own staff is 2X. That moment in time cost might seem lesser, but when you add absenteeism, when you add a lot of other issues, to manage the peak traffic, you have to keep a lot more people and so on and so forth. And the fact that you have to be dependent on labor, which is generally becoming more and more scarce. The effective cost comes out to be 2X. So one has to, stitching these two arguments together, one has to think, am I adding so much value that I am happy to incur that cost? If yes, I am, then I should go ahead and do it. But most probably, I should try and figure other ways in which I can still add that value. In my view, packaging, unpacking experience can be a great source of value addition than just owning the last mile physical delivery.
That's what has said. That's absolutely correct. The brand needs to ask themselves what value they want to create. So, in addition to this question, I think there's one more question which brands need to ask themselves, that what is their short-term goal and what is their long-term goal? Probably, there could be a way in between wherein the brands would say, okay, right now I want to start with a third-party aggregator, but over a period of 5 years, I would like to have my own fleet. But then if that is the case, then the brands have to have that strategy right and they have to start working from the day one. So you cannot just, this is not a switch on and off. You just cannot switch off one and on another, because it's not only the last mile delivery. If I'm not Rakesh, there's a lot of other value which these guys, all these aggregators add to a restaurant. So it depends upon the brand, but the thing is the brand needs to evaluate immensely and meticulously what they want in the long term and in the short term both.
I'll just add to that. I think it's a beautiful point. It takes years to get it right, right? It doesn't take a few months. And sometimes it might feel like it takes a few weeks or months. It actually takes years. And the best part is that consumer experience is continuously evolving. So by the time you get to the pit stop that you thought, consumers have moved 3 steps forward, right? Because the rest of the world has moved like that. So one has to take that conscious call. I want to own it. I want to add value. And it means, even if it means that it's not so-called profitable for me for the next 1 year, I will take that hit and continue to build. Because it will probably take 2 years or maybe 1.5 years to start getting it right. And then you have to also adjust the organization to be able to adjust to the continuous evolution as well, right? So that's the other part as well.
Fair. Questions, please.
Hello. Yeah. Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Raise your hand. Okay.
I'll probably ask the most pertinent question that every small business owner has. Probably not owning the last mile is a good thing, but in a price-sensitive market and the discounting culture that India has, we although provide a very good packaging and probably the most expensive out of it, but for how long is that sustainable with that kind of packaging and not able to sell a premium item in India. Like the average order value being around 300, 350, 375, 400 rupees, and giving a pack and with discounting culture and the commissions of aggregators. What's the long-term sustainability of good packaging and other things?
Okay, so see, packaging, if you're only a delivery-based, I'm guessing that's what you're talking about, right? If you're a delivery-based outlet, packaging plays a very important role, no doubt. But at the same time, your costs play an equally important role. Now, your packaging is important. Why? Because the customer is looking for hygiene. They're looking for their food getting delivered intact, looking the same way as it would have probably if they were dining at the restaurant, right? And of course, they want not the overheads being charged to the customer. Plus, of course, the volume, etc. Everything should be fine. So, the choice of packaging is very important. Plus, now I think. With a lot of bans happening on plastics, etc., there are a lot of sustainable solutions coming up. We already see a number of brands already converting to sustainable options. We see a lot of, other platforms also promoting, packaging in a way that. So, again, the choice of packaging is very important. And of course, the cost is. So how do you, balance that out is something that you would have to see, right? But of course, it's a very important factor.
I would like to add one point, just one point to it. When you look at the cost of packaging and you compare it with the cost of a person who is coming to dine in your restaurant, so have you tried to figure out what is the cost when a person comes to your restaurant and eat in there or you're placed for a dine-in, and what is the cost you are occurring on the packaging? Have you ever tried to calculate, have you ever tried to jot down all the parameters, all the things which you spend on that customer when he visits your store? Probably when you compare the two, I would say that the packaging would not be that expensive thing, what looks to you in the first impression. So you need to just think of it deep inside, what's the difference? How much I'm paying? That's it. And another thing, there are restaurants and customers are happy, as per my experience, paying extra 5% of the packaging charge because they understand, customer understands that there's a 5% or 4% or 10%, whatsoever it is. The cost which the restaurant has incurred to pack that product or the food which has been delivered to that place or is been taken out by them hygienically, and they have spent some money, so they are not very, I wouldn't say happy, but they don't mind sparing that much.
I'll just add maybe a little more practical point of view, and because we also offer packaging as a value-added solution to restaurants. It's not the business that we do, but we believe that it actually improves and enhances customer experience, so we should. It is true that restaurants are extremely price conscious on packaging. When I say extremely, it means they'll switch packaging if one packaging is for 1 rupee 20 paisa and the other is for 1 rupee 50 paisa, right? They will switch, which is 30 paisa per order, right? Which is nothing, which is less than 0.1% of the order. Most of the time, what I have seen is we don't design our business around a certain level of customer experience. That is incidental. So we say that, okay, we'll cook the food and we will deliver it. If it gets delivered well, that's great. If it doesn't get delivered well, then I don't know what to do. So one has to design the whole business around customer experience. What is it that I want the customer to feel when he or she is using my product? If he's eating my burger, is the bun slightly crispy and at the same time slightly soft? And if that's what I need, then I need perforated packaging. There is literally no answer. And when I work backwards from there, and if that perforated packaging is for 3 rupees versus what I thought should be 1 rupee, I need to shave off those 2 rupees somewhere else. Right now, the first reaction is, can I shave off that 2 rupees from packaging alone? But that's not the whole business, right? The whole business is getting the ingredients, cooking it, labor, conversion, wastage, customer experience, all of that. So don't isolate packaging, don't isolate any aspect of your entire food conversion process. You have to design the model around that. There's no other option, right? And otherwise, you give a bad quality bun, your business is not doing well anyway. So don't take it as an enemy, take it as a friend, and then work backwards and see if my cost is going upwards by a 50 paisa or a rupee, where do I save that extra rupee? That's more important in my view.
All right.
Super.
I think we'd like to take the questions offline since we are running short of time. I'd like to thank our panelists and of course Mr. Tuli for balancing, managing the panel discussion so well. Thank you. Thank you. Let's hear it loud for them, everyone. And I request if you can please get the mementos for our panelists on stage. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, as a token of respect and for all the appreciations, we'd like to present the mementos to our panelists. Can we get them on stage, please? I request Mr. Tuli to please present the mementos to our panelists. Please do the honors. And meanwhile, I'd like to inform the people who are sitting with us. Well, we have a roundtable discussion going on franchising on level -1. So the ones who are interested can certainly go there. Well, it's in core meeting 3 downstairs. If you are willing to go there, you can definitely go there. It is a roundtable discussion which is going on. And with this, I'd like to thank our panelists once again. I'd also request Nusra to please present the memento to Mr. Tuli. Yeah, this one belongs to you, yeah? All right, all right. Let's hear it loud together for them, everyone, for this wonderful session we had. A very insightful one indeed. Thank you. Thank you so very much, sir.